Hello my friends, the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going into outer space, and we all know how much pull the moon has on different things. Well, today we're in prison. We are on a prison planetoid, and it is being affected heavily by the moon, causing moonquakes. Today we're looking at MoonQuake Escape. This is a game for 2 to 6 players, brought to us by Breaking Games. Takes about 45 to 60 minutes to play. Today I'm going to do a rules school, which is an overview. First I'll give you a 1-minute brief overview of how the game works, and then I'm going to teach you how to set up and play the games so that you don't have to read the rules. So let's get started. MoonQuake Escape is for 2 to 6 players, and in this game you're trying to navigate out through a moon to get to the launch pad and be able to take off the rocket and escape this prison. You'll be dealing with terrain like craters or planes. You'll be able to do different actions like spying on people, scanning, stealing things from them, zapping them, zipping along the different levels, and also using different equipment. You'll be spending charges to be able to activate different cards, which will give you special abilities. You'll be zapping other players by zapping through their energy shields, thinking that they're hiding their alien under here. In this case, they're not, and they were hiding it over here. If you expose their alien, it hurts them for certain parts of the game. You have to watch out for the pesky guard, because he'll zap every alien that's on the same level as him. And as the moon quakes, things are going to move and the landscape is always going to be changing. There's rules for a basic game for younger players, or an advanced game that brings out all new terrains and many different advanced rules for gamer enthusiasts. To set up, the first thing you'll do is take the board and unfold it and place it in the middle of the table. Notice this board has a hex-shaped hole right in the middle of it. You're going to take the unstable molten core. Notice that this has a hex-shaped middle as well. It sticks out just a little bit. You don't want to punch this out. You do want to make sure it's sticking out just a little bit like that. And what you'll do is you'll line this up so that it actually sits nice and tight inside that hex hole there. Next, you're going to take this purple piece. It looks like a magnifying glass. It's called the gravitational stress, and you'll place it just like that. Now notice there's a little piece on the end here that says slide on. You're going to take the moon spinner post, it's this black piece like this, and you'll notice it has some ridges in the middle there. You'll actually slide this on just like that. You'll then place the yellow ball, which is the moon spinner, right on the moon spinner post. Now it has a hole in the bottom and the top, and you'll want to make sure it goes through both holes so that there is a little bit of the black sticking up, and now you have the moon spinner that will be used during the game. Next, you'll take this prison base here, and you'll notice on the back side of this it actually has a hex piece that will fit inside of this unstable molten core that's recessed down just a bit. So this will sit right in there, and it should sit like there and sit right inside of it just like that. Next, you'll place 3 surface rings in here. Now these are double-sided. You want to make sure that there is a B for the basic game on some of the pipes. I'll show you those in detail in just a moment, but you'll lay the 3 of them just like this, and then you'll also take the launch pad and place it on top. Now once you do that, you will align the pipes starting with the top down to the bottom and aligning them. So here you'll see the pipes are aligned from top to bottom, and you also see B for basic, B for basic, B for basic. All of them have a B somewhere that says B for basic. The other side is A for advanced, and that's for the advanced play that we'll get to at the end of this video. You'll take the moon orbit token and place it right where it goes on the board where it says moon orbit token. And to start the game, you'll make it so it's clockwise. If you flip it over, it says counterclockwise, but you want to start clockwise. You'll then take the black quake die and you'll place it on the board on the right of the board about middle where it says die isolation cell. It doesn't matter what side you put it on, just place it there for now. You will then take the guard that looks like this. You'll put him in a standee and you'll place him in the guard tower, which is the middle of the board all the way to the left. You'll also take the rocket piece, put it in its own standee, and place it standing straight up in the middle of the launch pad. At this point, every player gets to select which alien they'd like to be in the game. All these aliens get placed into one of those standees, and each player will select an alien. Now from the deck of cards that are in the game, you first want to remove all 12 alien cards. There's 6 players, there's 2 identical alien cards for each player. There's no difference between each of the aliens that you're selecting, but you want to make sure all 12 red alien cards are pulled out of the deck. You will shuffle this normal deck, and then depending on the standee that you took, if you took this one, you would then take the 2 corresponding alien cards for that alien. If there are less than 6 players playing, you'll take the alien cards that are not used for each of those aliens and remove them from the game. Then each player will take their alien standee and place it into one of these 6 areas on the board that have these little buildings. If there's less than 6 people, obviously there'll be some that aren't taken. So in a 6-player game, you'll see they'll all be filled. Each player will also take a status card. They're all the same, but each of them will have a slightly different color that marks their battery charges. They'll take one of the 2 alien cards that they had selected, and they will place it here so everyone can see which alien they are. They will also all get an energy shield card from the deck. You'll need to go through the deck and find these. Each player will get one of these and you place it on the left side. Left side means this is ready equipment. If it was on the right side, it would be not yet ready equipment. Then you'll shuffle the entire deck and each player will get 4 cards dealt to them. Once you have those 4 cards, you'll secretly look at them. Any cards that have a blue background will get placed to the right of your not yet ready equipment. The other cards will stay in your hand. You will then take your other alien card. Remember, you get 2 of these, one to show everybody who you are, and one that you'll actually put out. And you'll take these, you'll mix it in, and you will essentially put these face down in front of you. You will then take your energy shield, and you will place this on any one of these cards. You can always look and peek and see which card is where, and you might want to place this on any one of your 3 cards. You might want to protect your alien, or you might want to bluff and pretend like you're protecting them under a different card. Now here are the different types of cards in the game. We just briefly talked about some of the blue ones. Those are those equipment cards that will give you abilities throughout the game. We'll talk more about those later. The green ones are basically ones that hurt the attacker when you get attacked by them. The purple ones affect everybody in the moon, or sometimes they affect nobody. And the yellow ones hurt you as the defender if they're in front of you and get revealed. The game is played over 4 different phases: MoonQuake, Escape, Action, then Guard. You'll use this black phase token to match which phase you're in. In this case, we're going to start in the MoonQuake phase. Now the MoonQuake phase acts a little differently in your first turn. I'm going to go over that now. Later in the video, I'll go over how you handle the MoonQuake phase after the first turn. Also remember that I'm going over the basic rules, which are intended for younger gamers. Later on, I'll show you all the advanced rules that you can add to the basic game. So in the first time you're doing the MoonQuake phase, you'll find out who's going to be the first moon player. Every player will take this the moon spinner, and they'll spin it, and they'll see what number charge they get. The highest number will be that player. You would then move this, slide this around the board in front of that player, and the number that they rolled, which was their highest, is the charge for the first round. Wherever this is in between, it shows you the number of charges that would happen. So if the player sitting over here was the one that rolled the highest charge, let's say it was a 4, we would move this over to that player 4, and charge would be 4 for that round. So we started with 0 battery charges, and because the highest roll was 4 on the moon spinner, everyone moved up to 4. If you're ever to move up higher than 5, you just stop at 5. The moon player would then roll the quake die and change the board. You'll roll it 3 times, one for each of the rings. In this case, they would use this top ring, they would move it 0, it would stay the same. We'd go to the second ring. This says 2, and it's saying going counterclockwise. So on the second ring, notice how the pipes are matched up, we would move it 2. So essentially, we have 1, 2, each count matching up to the next pipe. And you'd do that for the third one, but let's just say we rolled 0 and it doesn't move. Otherwise, you would move just this bottom ring for the 3rd time. So it's 3 times, 1, 2, and 3. And next we will go to the escape phase. And with every phase, whenever I talk about moon orbit order, it's always what this is. Right now it's clockwise, so you start with the moon player and then go in moon orbit order. Now you'll do one of 2 different things during this phase. Number 1, if your alien is still hidden, which it is here, you'll move up 1 level on the board. So if I started here, I can choose to go to here or here. Now in this basic game, by default, you can't enter craters without special things happening that we will go over later, but for now, we choose just to go up here in the plains. Now notice that the pipes on the bottom of the board line up, and all the pipes line up. It might happen that you're always lining up the pipes when you turn the board from top to bottom, but it might happen that the bottom of the board might be off a little bit like that. If so, you can usually push down and line up the whole entire board where these don't spin in order to get these to sort of line up. Now, if I were here at the beginning of this phase, and my only two choices are to go to the crater or the crater, in that case, you could go into the crater in the basic game. Also, if you started in the crater, you could go to another crater with no penalty. Now, the exceptions in the basic game to move into the craters, other than what I've already mentioned, are you either have to be able to use Hazard Suit card or the Gravity Boots card to get in there. And keeping in mind that these have to be ready, they can't be in the not ready side. Now, we're going to talk about how cards work in more detail later, but just know that you can get pushed into another crater if a tractor beam card is enacted, and then the crate die would get rolled, and you would move that direction that many spaces if you were the attacker, and you would end up moving into a crater possibly. Now, if my alien was exposed, we'll talk about how that happens in just a moment, but if it was exposed and it was flipped up, these were the sort of the face down cards in front of my status card. If it was exposed, I wouldn't get to move up a level. Instead, I would draw 3 cards off the top of the deck and secretly look at them. If I'm at the very top of the moon, which is the launch pad, you would actually draw 4 cards. Otherwise, most of the time you're going to be drawing 3 cards, secretly looking at them. Any blue cards are added to the not ready equipment side of your status card. All the other cards that are in front of me will get taken up, including my alien. I would get to mix these up and place them down in front of me. Obviously, you can look at these at any time, and I would then decide to place any energy shields that I want over any card. After everyone's done that, we would go to the action phase. And starting with the moon player, going in moon orbit order, people will be able to spend battery charges to do some actions, and some of them are free. Here's all the different actions you can take. Zap, Zip, Scan, Spy, Steal. There's some miscellaneous actions. Let me go through all these. Let's start with Scan. It costs 3 charge. So if I want to do this 1, 2, 3, I would put this down just like that. So now I only have 1 charge left. Now to scan, you would draw 1 card off the draw deck. And if this card is a blue card, it would go to the right side of your status card, the not ready equipment. If it was not a blue card, it then would get put face down with your other cards, and at this point you can mix these up, you can change the energy shield and rearrange them any way you see fit, and if your alien card is exposed, it would stay exposed. You would continue to take actions until either you can't or you don't want to take any, then it would go to the next player's order. But I'm just going to show you what the other actions are, even though I don't have enough charges to do all of these. Let's go over Zap. Well, let's say I want to zap another player. I think they're hiding their alien under the energy shield. I spend a charge to zap the energy shield, and this has gone to the discard pile. I spend another charge to zap here, hoping to find the alien, and I find a lucky shot card. So we do what the card says. This says the defender loses a charge. This was the defender. They lose a charge, and then this gets discarded. I then spend another charge to zap here. Hey, we found the alien. So what happens now is, first of all, the player who found the alien gets to draw a card from the draw deck, just as if we mentioned in the scan section of this tutorial, and this player would need to keep this alien exposed until the next escape phase. Remembering, anytime you draw a card, especially like this, if it's a blue card, you put it on the not ready, otherwise you put it down into your hand face down, and you can always rearrange them and rearrange your energy shield as well. Also, when zapping, you cannot zap any player that already has their alien exposed. You could spend 1 to zip. Now you can only do this if your alien is still hidden in front of you, but this helps you move around the moon. And when zipping, let's say I want to go 2 spots, you can zip through the crater here. You're only using the effect of the place that you end in when doing it. So I started here, I zipped through the crater to here, that would be a valid zip. But if I was starting in a crater, you can zip like normal, 2 spots to a plains, or you could zip to a crater if it's adjacent. You could spend 1 to spy. Essentially, you get to look at any face down card in front of somebody else, but not if it's under an energy shield card. Now, you can steal if you're in the same space as somebody. So let's say we were both in the same spot or in this crater place. You could steal 1 not ready equipment card from them. And you can also use some miscellaneous actions. So in this example, we could ready equipment. In this case, we would spend a charge, however many charges the card says, we would spend that charge and then move this card to the ready side where we can use it whenever we like. Now, if you ready an energy shield, as soon as it's ready, it must be placed on one of your face down cards immediately. Of course, you can look at those face down cards at any time. You could also save any unspent charges if you had any, and you can use these basically once you've already paid the charge to get them over here, you can use them at any point. And in the action phase, you also get to use one of these bonus actions. Now, depending on wherever you start at the beginning of your action turn, that's the bonus that you get to do. So in this case, if I started in the plains, I get to use this action, which is scan. All these actions are ones that we've already gone over, but you get to use them during the action phase on the one that you started in. After everyone's finished, then we go to the guard phase. Now here's the guard so you can see what he looks like, and he's standing on this first ring. Now, if there happens to be no players on the same ring as the guard, the moon player will move the guard to any spot on the next level. But if there's at least one player, that guard will zap everybody that's on that level. Now, the guard zaps the players in the same order as the previous action phase. Start with that player, and then it goes in the direction of the moon orbit. That player takes a zap on the previous player, and so on and so forth until all the players are zapped. Now, when a player gets zapped by the guard, let's say it zaps this card, you flip it over, and unlike during a normal zap, when the guard zaps, you do not do what the card says, it just gets discarded. Also know that normally when you have an alien exposed, you cannot be zapped, but with the guard you can still be zapped if you have an alien card exposed. Now once the guard gets to the launch pad, the guard will remain there until it's zapped back to the guard tower, and then it will move on to the first level on its next guard phase. Now at the end of the guard phase, you check to see if the game might end. It does end if one or more players is on the launch pad, their alien is hidden, and they have at least one charge left. Noting that when moving to the launch pad, if you move through this forced fence, it costs you one charge. But if there's just one player there and all those conditions are met, they win. If there's more than one player there and all those conditions are met, the player with the more face down cards in front of themselves wins. If it's still tied, you spin the moon spinner to see who wins. If it's still tied, you continue to spin until there's one winner. Otherwise, if nobody's won, you'll start back over in the MoonQuake phase, and let's go over the differences in a non-first round of this. First, we look at the moon orbit direction. If there are any orbit reverse cards, for every card that's there, you'll discard it and flip this to the other side. You would then move the moon spinner to the next player in this direction. In this case, we're going counterclockwise, so the moon spinner would go in front of that next player there. Now that moon player would spin this to see how many charges everyone gets, unless there's one of two cards on the moon orbit token. The lunar eclipse gives everyone 2 charges. And if this wasn't on there, but the lunar glow was on there, everybody would get 5 charges. In either of those 2 cases, this would not get spun. Now you would go and change the board like I showed you earlier using the Quake die, unless all the players in the entire game are on the launch pad. In that case, you would skip the change board step and finish the MoonQuake phase. Here's some things to keep in mind when your alien is exposed. First, you cannot launch the rocket from the launch pad if you're exposed. No one can take the Zapp action against you when you're exposed, but you can still get zapped by the guard or the defense gun card. Also, you can take all the actions as normal, except you cannot take the Zippp action. But you can be moved by, say, a tractor beam, which aims and moves the attacker. You can still get moved by that if your alien's exposed. And then also remember that if your alien is exposed, during the escape phase you don't actually move, but you actually draw cards and then re-hide your alien. So let's talk about what these different equipment cards do. There's 6 different ones. The energy shield we've already talked about. When somebody zaps it, it just protects your card from being zapped. They have to spend another zap to then hit this card. Now the hazard suit, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, in the basic game it allows you to move into a crater. You would then discard it. And if you're in that spot at the beginning of the action phase, you could use that icon for the bonus action once you're there. Now for the advanced game, this will allow you to move through other types of terrain that we'll go over in just a moment. It also would help protect you going through a force fence, getting on the launch pad, but does not protect you from being zapped by, say, a defense gun or a tractor beam. Now the extra battery is used once it's ready. Basically, I have no charges left. I can discard this to spend 1 charge as an action during the action phase. I also could use that extra battery charge to launch the rocket off the launch pad to win the game. Now the extra battery is safe from the lucky shot, which is mentioned on both of these cards, and it's also safe from radiation, which is an advanced terrain that we'll talk about a little bit later. Now the gravity boots, the first thing we saw is in the basic game, it lets you get into a crater. But other than that, it allows you to ignore the moon slide and tractor beam cards, as this card states. If you're going to use it to ignore a tractor beam, you must discard this before you roll for the tractor beam. Now the grenade launcher, let's say I already had this ready and I was getting ready to use it. This is another player. I can use it to zap a shield and the card under it. So I would discard this and I could zap the shield. If there was another shield under it, I could zap that and that would be it. If this only had one energy shield on it and I played that grenade launcher, I could zap this and then zap this, hoping to find, well, it's a tractor beam, not good for me. Now you can use that grenade launcher also to get to a hidden card or the guard, and you can use it when your status gun is jammed as well. Now the repair kit doesn't cost anything to move it from the not ready to the ready. All the other equipments cost 1 to move over here. But once it's here, basically you can use it to use one of these other equipment cards. Instead of discarding this, you can actually use this repair kit to keep this. So how this would work is I use my grenade launcher, I do the action. Instead of getting rid of this, I can get rid of the repair, and this goes down into the not ready equipment. Now, if I didn't want to do that, you also get to know that in the advanced game, this can be used to create a decoy, which we'll go over later, and it cannot be used to save equipment during lava flow. That's also an advanced game tactic. I'm going to go over the different advanced rules that you can add to the game if you'd like. Now you can add as many or as little of these as you'd like. If you play with all of them, it's known as playing the maximum security rules. Let's dive into the new terrains first. If you remember when setting up, we had you put all of these on the B side for basic. If you flip them over, they're the A side advanced. You can mix, have some of them as basic, some of them advanced, or all advanced or any mix in between for a total of 16 different possibilities. The craters act differently. Number one, you can freely enter them unlike the base game, but you cannot zap or spy into or out of it, but you can if you're in the same spot in the crater with somebody else. Also, when you're charging, you get -1 charge during the MoonQuake phase if you're in a crater. The magnetic flux, if you're in one of these, you have to make any readied energy shields unready, and they cannot be moved to ready while you're in magnetic flux. If you go into lava flow, you have to destroy all unready equipment. Even if you have a repair kit, it cannot be used if you're in the lava flow. Now, if you're in the radiation spot, at the end of your action phase, you must remove all charges left over. You have to go to 0 charges. However, you can keep an extra battery readied to use later. Now, if you're in the tractor beam spot, essentially the tractor beam hits you, you roll the quake die, and you move yourself to the spot that the die tells you to move to. Also, if you're on this spot, if you want to use the bonus action, you can aim the tractor beam at somebody else. If you're on the Ion Storm side, you cannot use scan or spy actions, and you're also safe from the spy actions from others. If you're on the defense gun spot, the player to the left gets to zap one of your face down cards or your energy shield. Now, even if your alien is exposed, they can do that to you. If they do it to a face down card, you do not resolve the effect, you just discard it. Also, if you're here, you can use this space as a bonus action to aim the gun to zap a player or guard. You can play with advanced guard movement. Whenever a guard moves up a level, the moon player will then roll the quake die and move the guard accordingly. And then if that guard is in the same spot as other aliens, he then zaps them. Otherwise, the aliens don't get zapped. Now you can play with hidden equipment. Let's say you draw this card. Normally, any equipment card would go in the not ready. But you can decide to, instead of doing that, place it face down and rearrange it as you wish in your face down hand. However, if an attacker does zap this card and it gets flipped over, that attacker gets to take this card and ready it themselves. However, equipment cards gained this way or with the steal action cannot be placed face down. If you have a readied repair kit, you can discard this card, and then you can take either a hazard suit or a gravity boot card, a single one of these, and you can place it face down into your face down hand. Of course, you can always rearrange these, but it allows you to do that to one of those, and that's called decoying, because you are decoying as to which cards are down there, and it's harder for them to find the alien. There's also a sudden death shootout you can use for the end of the game. If more than one player is here, you no longer just do the moon spin-off, you can try to shoot each other out. Now when this happens, players can move their energy shield to any card they want at that point. If the guard's at the launch pad, he moves back to the guard tower, and the current player adds 1 charge to their action card. And at this point, the players are trying to zap each other to win the game. But if when zapping the other player a guard card comes out, the guard appears from the guard tower and zaps all remaining players and then goes back to the guard tower. And no one wins if the guard finds all players in the same round. If the gun jam card comes out, essentially the attacker cannot zap until the next round of the shootout, but they could disregard it with a repair kit. And then you go back and forth with the players in the shootout until one of these things happens. Well, in this case you lose if your alien card is revealed face up, or you run out of charges, or your alien gets knocked off the launch pad on the board. In other words, the last player remaining is the one that launches the rocket and wins. Well, there you have the rules and the setup for MoonQuake Escape. I hope that helped you dive right in without having to look through the rulebook. If you have any questions about the rules, go ahead and leave them here and we'll do our best to answer them.